Hello. So in today's video we are talking about an SEO guide to buy hosting. So a quick note before start again, if you already have bought your hosting and your domain, then you can skip these two videos, otherwise you can continue. So here are the things that we will discuss today. The things will be definition and I will tell you the signs for good hosting, what hosting means for SEO, what are the red flags or things you should avoid in hosting while buying hosting, what are the types of hosting. I have some tools for you which you can use to check hosting of other people, and you can do reverse IP domain check. And at the last, I will share with you a shared hosting experiment. This is a very interesting one, so be around till the last. So first we will start with what is web hosting. So as you can see here, it says web hosting is a service that allows individuals and organizations to post a website onto the internet. Basically, you are buying space on the internet to host your website, your things or anything like that. So hosting companies actually gives you space on a physical server. This is the basic definition of what a web hosting is. If you don't want to say it web hosting, you can simply say it hosting. So the next point is, what are the signs of a good hosting? Like when you are buying hosting, what are the things that you should look for? So the first and the foremost thing is speed. You actually want a web hosting that is fast enough so that your page loads fast, and you know already that page speed is a big factor when it comes to ranking, and users also prefer fast websites. Next is uptime. Uptime is something like how long your website is live, basically, in a shorter version. So you don't want your site to be down more frequently. I have seen with some hosting when your site gets down more frequently than it should be. So it's not a good thing basically, both for search engines and users. The next point is storage. You want sufficient amount of storage on your physical server where your website will be hosted, because you don't know what amount of files and what amount of media images you will be hosting on your site. So it becomes important that you have plenty of space. The next is reliability. You obviously want a web hosting service that is reliable, that you can trust. The next thing is support. You want hosting that is supportive enough so that if you run into any problems in your site, let's just say your site is down for n number of hours and you don't know what's going on, you haven't done anything wrong, so you obviously want a hosting provider that is helpful enough so that you can get with them on either call, text or anything that can get you to resolve your problems quicker. So you want a hosting service that is supportive enough. Other points are security, backup, scalability and additional features. When I say additional features, they can be like something providers provide you with email and SSL support and things like that. So these are some additional things that you may want your hosting provider to provide you. The next thing we are talking about is hosting and SEO. So when we talk about hosting, it is not a direct ranking factor. This means that your rankings won't be directly affected by the type of hosting or the company from which you are buying your hosting from. There are some things though that affect the website. One of the main things is speed. Speed is actually a crucial factor when it comes to ranking, because you may know already that speed is a ranking factor and you don't want your site to be slow. Although there are many plugins that are available for WordPress that can help you speed your site, but you don't want to, add too many plugins into your site because it can get bloated. Another thing that can be related to hosting in a way is downtime or uptime. So if your site is down for a longer time, let's just say like a few hours or a few days, then it can hurt your SEO, because Google will be crawling your site again and again to see if the site has been up yet or not. So in those cases, you have to serve appropriate HTTP codes like 543 or something like that. so that Google will know when your site will be up again. And if a user lands on your site when it is down, they will think that this site does not exist and why it is ranking number 1 on Google when it is not opening. So this can hurt your SEO. Another thing which is not as important as you may think it is, but if your audience is in certain location, let's just say your audience is in UK or Canada or something like that, then you want a hosting provider that whose server is in the same location as your audience. It doesn't matter much if you use CDN or something, but it is something that I must tell you. So here comes the fun part. I am telling you things you should avoid and the red flags that you should look out for when buying hosting. So the first thing we are talking about is choosing the wrong type of web host for your needs. This means that suppose your website has 100 pages or maybe 200 or maybe 1000, 10,000 pages, and you are choosing a hosting that is not relevant to your needs, such as shared hosting or maybe virtual private server. These are not the best options for you. So if you are choosing that kind of hosting, it is something that you should avoid. The next thing is customer support. There are many times that hosting companies doesn't provide good support, like they only provide support in maybe email, or they don't provide support in on calls and chat or something like that. So it is something that you should try to avoid when it comes to buying hosting. Next is frequent downtime. If your site is experiencing downtime frequently, and even if it is for a shorter period of time, but if you are experiencing a lot of downtime, then it is a red flag. I don't know if there are any services or websites which can show you which hosting provider websites are more down, but yeah, it is something that is a huge red flag to me, and you should try to avoid this at all costs. Other thing is high upgrade fees. So suppose their basic plan is $50 or something, and then to upgrade to their more premium plans you have to pay 2 times or maybe 3 times the cost of the basic plan. So if their pricing is like this, then this is something that you should avoid. The last points are free hosting and hidden fees. Hidden fees can come in the cost, like suppose you are looking at their pricing page and they are telling you that we are giving huge discounts, and when you come to their pricing page for checkout, they show you 25 different types of costs. So this is something that you may want to avoid. The other thing that we are talking about is the types of hosting. So these are the types of hosting. Don't worry, we will actually talk about all of these hosting one by one. So first we are starting with shared hosting. This kind of hosting is very basic kind of hosting. This type of hosting is suitable for people who are newbies, meaning they are just started out, or they have a small site, they don't have a large site with tons of content and things like that. So this can be appropriate for these people. And as you can see, these are the pros of having shared hosting, that it is affordable. I would not say it is affordable, it is cheap. I think cheap is a good word to use here. Most of the time shared hosting is cheap than other kinds of hosting, and it is easy to use because obviously you don't have to do many things. And the biggest con of shared hosting is performance issues. This is more common because, as you can see, a lot of sites are hosted on a single server. So basically all of these sites are competing with each other for resources, and that's why it can give you performance issues on your site. Just because somebody else's site has more traffic than they expected, it can affect your site also. Next we are talking about is virtual private servers or VPS hosting. This is basically in the middle of a dedicated hosting and a shared hosting. So suppose you don't want to spend less money for shared hosting and you don't have a huge budget for dedicated servers, then you can go for something like VPS. As you can see, the pro of this type of hosting is that it is powerful than shared hosting, but yeah, it is not as good as a dedicated server, so it is somewhere in the middle. You can say that one of the cons of having a virtual private servers is that it requires technical knowledge, and if you don't have a developer or you don't have technical knowledge, then maybe it is not the best option for you. The next type of hosting is dedicated server hosting. So you basically get a personal server, so this all of this server is only for you. You can do anything with it, so you have basically full control over it. The performance is great because you have control over it, you can do anything, and it is also secure, because when it comes to shared hosting or virtual private servers, a lot of sites are hosted on the same servers, so you don't know which sites are toxic or not, and that's why having a dedicated servers is a great security thing. And dedicated hosting is one of the expensive, if not the most expensive kind of hosting. And one of the cons can be like, even if you have a dedicated server to yourself, you can do anything with it. It is not important that you will use all of the resources that are available in the server. So yeah, it can be a waste of resources, but it is up to you. If you have a huge site that obviously needs a dedicated server, then you should go for it. The next is managed hosting. So in this, the web host, like the hosting provider, actually manages everything on your behalf, so you don't have to manage anything, you just have to focus on your website and your content. The best example of managed hosting can be the WordPress hosting, the managed WordPress hosting. So the biggest pro of this type of hosting is that you get expert support, and it is time saving because you don't have to deal with every single thing. And with support, it is obvious that you will have less control over it, because the experts will be looking over your site's hosting, so you will have less control over your hosting. One of the best options is cloud hosting. I'm not saying it is the best, obviously you should choose with your needs, but cloud hosting is something that is, your site is not hosted on a single server, it is hosted on a network of servers. So even if one server goes down, your site is still up because it is hosted on a bunch of servers. So the biggest pro of it is the scalability and flexibility. You don't have to worry about resources, and you don't have to worry about things like, my site is growing big, now I have to change my hosting or upgrade my hosting. It is very much scalable. And another thing of cloud hosting is that you have to pay as you go, like you don't have to pay a certain amount at the start of every month or every year. And it is the most cost effective of all of the types of hosting. The last type of hosting that we are talking about is reseller hosting. So suppose I am an agency and I have some clients, I can actually say them that I provide hosting services, so they will pay me and I will pay the actual hosting provider. So I will be the middleman between my clients and the hosting provider. So this is something that I can earn a profit from. So suppose the actual hosting plan is $100, and I can add my profit like $50 or maybe another $100, and I can charge that to client. This is good for people who are middlemen like agencies, because they can earn additional profits, and it is low operating cost, like you don't have to manage an actual server. All of this is being done by the web hosting provider. And the cons of the this type of hosting can be that you have to be dependent on the parent host, which is the actual service provider. And another thing is support, that your clients obviously want their site to be up every single time. And again, it is not important that the hosting provider will give you 100% uptime guarantee, so it can be a little mess, but people have earned their fair share of profits from this kind of hosting. So here I have a few tools for you, not a few, they are just two for now. So the first tool can actually help you to identify which hosting a website is using, and the second tool is to check how many websites are there on a single server. This is more for identifying sites that are on the shared hosting. So let me show you each of these sites. So this is the first site that I was talking about. It just says find out who is hosting any website. I am sure there must be many other tools that do same job, but I found this one, so I'm sharing it with you. So let's put a random website. This is a random website that I found today. So if I click on find host, then it will actually tell you who the host is. Okay, so in this case it is Cloudflare, so they are using a CDN, so we can't get to know who the actual host of this website is. But yeah, you can get information like where the website is from. So it seems like it is from Montreal, Canada. I think it can be a very helpful tool when you are doing site audits or something like that. The next tool that I want to show you is this reverse IP domain check. This basically tells you how many websites are there hosted on a single server. So if we actually put the last website from the other tool and add to check here, it says that it found 2 domains hosted on the same web server as this website. So these are the 2 servers. There is nothing to worry about because they only found 2 websites on the same server, which is exactly the same website. One is the non-www version and one is the www version. The last thing that we are discussing about is the shared hosting experiment. This experiment basically compared hostings from cloud hosting and shared hosting to see which kind of hosting really affects rankings and traffic. So the main conclusion of this study is that shared hosting that shares IP addresses with toxic and low quality websites can affect rankings and traffic. So like if you are buying hosting from a cheap service provider and there are a lot of websites, maybe in hundreds, and these 100 websites are hosted on a single server and your website is also hosted on that server, you don't know how many toxic websites are there. So if you have bad neighborhoods, like toxic neighborhoods, then it can actually affect your rankings and your traffic. Let me show around you this study. So this is the study page, and I highly recommend you taking time to read this study because this is a very interesting study and it highlights how shared hosting can affect your rankings and your traffic. So I think it is a good read and you should definitely read it. I will put all the links to these studies and the tools and the slides in the description so that you can check out the slides. You don't have to write anything if you are. So that brings us to conclusion. The first conclusion is that web hosting doesn't have a direct impact on SEO. Like the web hosting company you are using and the type of hosting you are using doesn't really affect SEO. But yeah, there are things that are related to hosting like uptime and speed and performance issues. These can affect SEO. And to find your right hosting provider, assess your needs, like what exactly do you need. Compare different types of hosting, like the ones we have talked about before, and consider factors like pricing, support, and reviews. You have to take some time to do an in-depth research on the type of hosting that you are going to buy. What are the pricing like? What is the support like, and what are the reviews like? So that you can get overall idea of different kinds of hosting, and you can assess for yourself which one should you buy. And last but not the least, if you can, you should avoid shared hosting because let's face it, my website is also on a shared hosting and I'm seeing some consequences like how bad it is. So I will recommend you guys also to stay away from it if you can and if you have the correct budget. That's it for the video. This video is actually part of a course which I am creating. So be sure to check all other videos listed in the description below. Thank you.